name is Marella. I am one of the Save Our Sperrins team. I care about the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the earth that supports us, both now and particularly for generations coming behind us, because at the moment humanity is going through a phase of consuming, and we're actually devouring all our natural resources. This concerns me, and I can just see it as being a huge problem in the future. I've always been involved around environmental issues. However, I wasn't involved initially in the first 2 years of the campaign. Locally, a farmer came down to me and said, was I aware that folk had been exploratory drilling less than half a mile away up the road and within 150 metres of our local water reservoir. And that was the catalyst and what made me care, because I was very aware. I lived out near a mine in Australia for some years back in the 80s, and I was very aware of the consequences of a mine coming locally here to the area. January 2005 it started properly and it collapsed almost immediately. We realised that the neighbouring jurisdiction of the Republic of Ireland had not been informed properly, and nor were the local population given enough adequate time to respond to a consultation that was put out in December 2025, 2 days before Christmas, and it was shut about 10 days just during the holiday time, so a lot of the public were unable to respond to it. So we, in January 2025 last year, we went in and said, as some people came down from Donegal, said we were unable to respond to this, it was inadequate. And we have sent in statements of cases to the PAC to air our concerns as to why the mine shouldn't be here. And because both countries have signed up to the Aarhus Convention and the EPU, it means that in relation to environmental projects that will have impact on local communities, that people have a right to be able to respond and have to be given adequate time and be able to get access to the planning applications and so on. So this community in Donegal didn't have any of that. So on a state level, the DFI hadn't notified the Republic of Ireland, so procedurally they had broken the law. Mining is essentially a large-scale waste facility that is being created, looked after for a number of years and then abandoned. That's exactly what mining is. Our resources are being plundered locally by companies which are not from this part of the world. They're Canadian, American companies. It's a little bit like colonialism. The resources are being taken out of the country from the community, and the community is left with the risk. A short-term risk is that it causes the release of these heavy metals from deep within the ground, mixes with the air and turns on a system called acid mine draining, which continues forevermore. The water is drained out of the mine and it goes into the local water system. So it impacts our drinking water and it never gets turned off, and it's like acid in the stream. So you can imagine what happens to the flora and the fauna of the streams, which feeds into the River Strug, which feeds into the Mourne River system and out into the Lough Foyle. That's the initial thing. Then they build these huge mine waste tailings dams, and it's where all the rubbish from the mine is dumped. And these waste tailings dams, the one here is to be situated on top of what's known in the local area as Sheshkin Shul, and in Irish that means moving bog. When the mine tailings waste settles in those ponds, it dries and forms a cake, and in the summer it blows as dust, and that is absolutely toxic dust. You can read about the cancers and the illnesses that are caused as a result of this. So this is just the start of what will occur here. Because the dust and the water, local farmers, their milk will no longer be accepted by the dairies, because the dairies will know that it's contaminated milk. So it will put local farmers out of business. And we have examples of this. Down in Limerick, Askeaton, there's a toxic waste dump. Now it's aluminium processing. It's much the same chemicals that would be in gold mine processing. There, something like 26 farmers were impacted by the dust from the aluminium processing, and has put many of them out of business because of sickness in cattle, contaminated milk, and sickness in human beings. So we started our campaign 10 years ago, and so far there's no mine there yet. There most certainly would be a mine there if we hadn't stepped up and said actually this far and no further. And right now we're in a particularly powerful position because this is the strongest position we can be in. If we had to try and stop a mine that was already there, it would be impossible to stop, because there are so many aligned powers all set up, designed to keep going, to keep extracting money out of the economy here and for it to disappear abroad. When mining comes into community, it splits up a community because, as you can imagine, some people want it and some people don't. Initially, a lot of people were for it, but as people began to become educated around the consequences of it, now they've started to back off and there are less and less people for it. So it's a village that would have one time stood together back through the Troubles is now split here and there. So it causes community rifts. And then when the mines come in, they also offer money to all sorts of people. They buy social capital. So they will go into the schools, they will go into the local organisations, they go into the football organisations and say, hey, we'll build you a new hall, or we'll give you new computers, or we'll buy the community a bus, and so on and so. But you have to sign this here that you will never speak out against us. And so they buy their social capital that way. And unfortunately, Dalradian were here operating, doing that 10 years before we were aware of it. So we also had that problem to contend with. The waste tailings dam is to be 17.5 stories high, and I think it's 1.5 kilometres in length, and it will hold 8 million cubic metres of waste. Now, in every mining manual everywhere, in every mining college, the students get their book, and the first line in that book is that all mining tailings dams fail, and it's not a matter of if, but when. So there's no such thing as a structure being made forever holding 8.5 million cubic metres of liquid that will not at some stage collapse and cause a tidal wave of extremely toxic waste to enter into our watershed. If this happens, it's predicted by Dr. Stephen Emmerman that it will hit Lough Foyle within 2.5 hours.